So can we start at the point where you grew up? Because we directly jumped into a huge topic.
Yes.
And normally when people hear someone like you speaking, then they think, ah, yeah, she grew up that way. She had a lot of money. She had the best education. But you definitely prove that it's all inside you. So would you like to, you already said that you have 7 or 6 siblings. Would you explain a bit more about your family and how growing up in a huge family in Afghanistan was like?
Okay. First, actually, to tell you, to start, I have to extend back, and then to tell you the truth, I was born in a low-income working family, and my father was the only simple worker who had to afford in order to feed the 7 siblings that we are. And when I was born, I think I never had money. Even I think right now, just €1 is nothing for me. But on that time, for months and years, I never had that one. So that was a lot of things. If once I could have that, then also I was born when Taliban had their actually administration there the first time, and just talking to my mother, sometimes I understood that they had to hide me from Taliban, and the Taliban had to never understand my mother has born a baby which is girl. So that was a guilt for my mom, and also for me which was born as a girl. So I have to thank in this point to my mom, who as a mother did her job very well. Then when I found myself a 7-year-old girl, I told you it was only 6 or 5 years after Taliban's era. Then when they got out, then I was just I had to work as a shepherd in order to help my father, my mother, and just the income of our family. So I had to work as a shepherd, walking on hot deserts on high hills. And however, thanks to my father, who had a very small old radio, and I could install that sometimes I talked to him a lot in order to borrow that for myself. Then listening to some radio signals, which mostly I remember it was Washington, D.C. and also BBC. I learned a nice word, and that nice word was the word of education, So for the first time, I learned the word of education from a radio. And then when I learned the word and I just understood what the boys in our village was doing, it was educating themselves. It was education. So I thought with myself, if the boys are doing this, why not me? And why not the girls in our village? Why? This is crazy, Just asking my mom and my dad, they said, you are a girl. Just it's easy. The reason is easy, you are a girl. But that reason didn't convince me. This is crazy to think just you're a girl, you cannot do that. And that was also exactly the Taliban mindset. So I started to find a solution for myself to do exactly what the boys were doing on that time. And I have to thank the sheep and the cows that I was running after them. So there was a nice solution. The river that the boys were studying next to that, and we didn't have any school on that time. So they were studying on the sands next to river under the shade of a tree. So there were so many grass next to that river. So I could take my sheep there, and then just the sheep were grazing. Then I was hiddenly listening to the teacher who was teaching the boys. So because, I told you there was no money for me to buy books, notebooks, or pen for myself. So the way I used to practice writing and reading, it was writing and reading on the sands, mountains, anything. I thought it was correct for practicing learning. Then I did it nearly for 2 years, and even just the days that the boys had a school, the teacher or sometimes the boys were looking at me strangely. This girl is crazy, always bringing their just sheep or cow next to this river. Why? It was a question for them, but they couldn't tell me anything because I could do as I want. And at least as a shepherd, who I took it very seriously as my job.
Yeah.
Then I did it for 2 years. Then the Red Cross organization had a kind of food program in order to help the families who let their girls go to educate. So I have to thank the Red Cross organization that educated the minds of so many parents, at least because of the help they received. So some girls in the village were allowed to go to study, and I'm lucky because I was one of that girls who convinced my parents to do that. But surely at the same time I had to be a shepherd too, because there was no one else smaller than me in the family who had to do that. Then I went on with my basic studies. I was nearly 10 years old. That there was a kind of family conflict and also economical problems. So my father decided to move to Herat city. So when we came to Herat, things were completely different. It was a small village, and Herat was a big city with different culture, different people, and also there were schools. So for me, seeing the very beautiful girls wearing beautiful uniforms and the backpacks going to school every day was in a way they just made me cry because I couldn't do that, and in a way it was motivating me to do something for myself. So I couldn't go to educate because my father, he was a simple worker, and also we didn't have any home there. We had to rent a house, and also we even couldn't rent a house. You know, we were staying in a house from our relatives who left Afghanistan during Taliban, and the house was remained. It was actually destroyed, no window, no door. So we decided to live inside that. Then my father had to work first by window, and also he had to afford to provide food for us and so many other things. So what I could do and what solution I could find for just my education, it was making some handicrafts, and thanks to my mother who decided to sell them into the local shops. So I was making those handicrafts and my mother was selling them. By the money I could earn, so I could buy some books and notebooks and just practice reading and writing by myself at home. So I did it for 3 years. It means that for 3 years I continued, I resumed my education by myself at home, just to do not give up. And there was always a hope for me, and I was always thinking after darkness, after each dark night there is a lighted day. So after 3 years, every day watching those girls, I just used to watch them and smile to them, or sometimes even cry. I just decided to do something for myself. If they can go, why I cannot do this? This is not something impossible. I'm sure I can do this. So I decided to double making handicrafts, and so by the money I could earn more money, and by the money I could earn, I could participate to a private school. If I could participate to a government school, it was better because I need less money. But the governmental school didn't accept me because because I didn't have any documents. I had to start from the first, otherwise they didn't. So I participated to a private school. And at the same time, I was working hard to make handicrafts. You know, when I remember sometimes for 3 nights or for 2 nights, I never slept because I had to find the money that I was participating there. And just my father or my mother, they asked me, you cannot go or you cannot participate in school because there is no money. So I told them I will find the money, find the expenses, or I will carry the expenses by myself. So, you know, the good thing was at the same time I participated to school, there was an organization. They offered free EFL or English classes for refugee girls who were internally displaced from war-torn provinces. So I had the chance to participate and take a seat in that. then when I just participated to that class, very soon I tried hard and I learned English, and very soon I was hired. They hired me as an English assistant teacher and paid for me $50 per month. Maybe right now, if I think of that $50 per month is nothing, but at that time that was enough for me to carry my education expenses. So I stopped to make handicrafts, and instead I was working hard to teach my students in better way in order to have more money and go with my education. So for 3 years, at the same time with school, I also was teaching my students English. And you know, the very funny thing about my English classes was when I started to study at school, there were some girls who they didn't like me. They were always insulting me and calling me just maybe dirty girl, because I was never had very new clothes, or never could buy for myself the clothes that I wanted. So they didn't like me. None of them wanted to be my friend. And so in the English classes, some of them, they were my students, and I was teaching them English. Then, so I just finished my school at the same time with teaching my students. And when I finished this school, also the project or the organization just collected and finished the projects that they had for girls here. So what we decided to do, 10 of my friends and I, we gathered together and just taught together. So we established our own organization. And because the town that we were living there was no library for girls to go to study there, to have a good time for their studies. We also had a campaign for collecting books. We went door to door, just advertising on social media, and just even there was someone in a very far place. They just told us we have a book event. So we went each one and collected the books. So we also established a library there for the girls of the area. And at the same time, I had to participate to pass the university entrance exam, which was the very competitive exam that each one of us, when we are graduated from school, we have to pass that exam. If we fail, we cannot participate in university. So I participated to that university entrance exam, which the name is Conquer, and I took the score, and fortunately I was accepted in my favorite field, and I could take a seat in Harare University. Then I was worried about my university expenses, because the organization that we had, it was voluntarily just helping the girls to educate, because I already experienced how hard it was if I didn't have money and there was no education. So I was worried about that, but I was doing that, even sometimes walking to the university, because the university was governmental. Sometimes I walked for 1 hour or even 2 hours to get to university. Sometimes the very cheap transportation, which was kind of the range, taking that. And just starting my university at the same time, I started to do a project, because I always loved the beauty of the country, the nature, historical places, and so many other things. I just started to do a project, researching about those beautiful attractions. I wanted to know more about them. So I started to research. As I was searching a lot about them, as I was knowing more and more, I decided to also, why shouldn't I open a just Facebook account and write about them there? In this way, I also cannot improve my writing, and there are some people who comment, how do I write? So because most of my friends on Facebook didn't know, they were just Persian speakers, so I also joined the group, which the members were all maybe travelers or English speakers. So in order to also improve my English, every day that I was learning more about the attractions, I was writing a post in that travel diary group about that place. So I think this attracted the attention of so many English speakers. And I was just, one day I posted a post, and just suddenly a person. He was from Ukraine, and he messaged me, "Hi Fatima, what you write in Facebook, we really love that, and we are already reading them in just interestedly. We are traveler. We are in Afghanistan. We want to come to Herat, but we don't have any tour guide. If you have the time and the energy, so please show us the city to us." Then for me, it was very interesting, and I loved that because for the first time, I was going to meet two people from foreign countries, and the one who they can speak English, I can also speak English with them, and I also could show the beauty of my city to them. So that was amazing for me. Surely I accepted, and they came for 2 days. I had fun introducing the city to them. So the way I introduced the city to them, it was actually surely for free, because when I didn't know a tour guide would take salary for the job that she does. So I did it for free, and then because I didn't know it, they had to pay for me. Then so I just showed the city. It was interesting for them, and the way I showed them, and also the way I just hosted them. Then they just suggested me to the company, and the company just the next time company when they came to Herat and brought a group of tourists, they contacted me, "Fatima, we are the company that Victor has introduced you to us, and we want you to pass a test." And I went there. I guided 5 people for 1 day. They observed, and there were 2 people. So they observed me, and after the observation, I was successfully accepted as the tour guide. Yeah, and then when I was accepted as a tour guide, so the next step was I have to talk with my family, and also I have to deal with the community that didn't want me to do that as a girl, especially if that girl was a Shia Hazara girl. Then talking to my parents, surely I don't have to blame my parents for not letting me do that, because no one in the community wanted me to do that. They were against what I was doing. Then they were worried about my life. They were telling me, "Fatima, you are just crazy. You are going to kill yourself. You are going to." My father was telling me, "You decided to kill yourself. Believe me, you're going to carve your own grave, and you're going to bury yourself alive," and something like this. I was telling them, "Father, please, just for the first time, trust me. This is my life, and I have to go on. I never had a very comfortable life. I tried hard. This is a chance for me to connect myself to the world and to do something for my country." Thinking of this, that Afghanistan was known as a war-torn country, as a very negative country, made me crazy sometimes. So it was a beautiful chance for me to connect Afghanistan to the world, and to describe Afghanistan, or to understand the world that Afghanistan is not what you are thinking about. So as I just convinced my family, they were telling nothing, but surely I understood from their silence that they are not satisfied, but I was crazy. Then when I just started my job, so I entered to the society. The next step was to fight with them. Sometimes there were some children, they were stoning me, and they were making a mockery on me, and they were what I was doing was ridiculous according to their view. And the people who as I was walking on the streets together with my guests, especially if the guests were men, were looking at me very strangely and telling very insulting words, and so many other things. I just remember there was a very really old man. He was a religious man, and people really respected him. He was working in a very historical shrine. As I took my guests here, so I had to take my guests there to show the historic beauty of that shrine. Then he was telling me, "Oh, again, you, the crazy girl, you are going out of the religion, and you are spreading lies, you are spreading evil, and wear your scarf just in a better way, half shade, or do not walk with these guys again. And there's not always, it's not always late if you turn back to your normal life and worship God. So what I could do, the way I was fighting with him or anyone else in the society was just I smiled, giving him a smile and telling, yes, again me. And then he told nothing anymore because he knew that. So if I told him something, then he was again maybe worse, I don't know, but I was, or anyone else. I remember that he was a very educated man, and he was the manager of a historical place. The very first day, he was telling me, "Come on, Fatima, it's dangerous for you. You don't only put your own life in danger, but also you put the life of many of your guests in danger. You have to come, even if you want to continue this job, you have to do it together with a man, because you are a woman, you cannot do that alone. So you are a girl and you can't do that. It's dangerous for you." So like him, many other friends, family, or even the society, they were sending me very negative energy. But it was really tough for me to see those annoying guys, to hear those insulting words, and to even sometimes physically be annoyed. But the good thing was they motivated me every day to be stronger, telling myself, Fatima, to fight with them, you just need to be stronger. So this made me stronger within, stronger, and to work harder. And the good thing was I was not alone. The very soon, just the world was together with me, sending me positive energy and telling me what you are doing is incredible. And every day they motivated me more and more. More people and more travelers were contacting me, and especially more women travelers were interested to come to Afghanistan because of what I was doing for. And I was happy, and I'm happy for I could do something that there were more people who became interested in Afghanistan. There were more people who loved Afghanistan. So I continued to do that. And at the same time, I just was going on, when I chose to study journalism in the university, also my parents didn't want me to study that because journalism was a field that was considered only for boys. It was also dangerous and challenging in the situation that Afghanistan. So I also chose that challenging field. So I was also had my radio program just to work on women's mindset and to give them awareness to stand up and just do something for yourself. So inviting the very incredible woman who had nice stories. And at the same time, I was working hard in the organization that we had out of my official time. It was very early in the morning. It was very dark. It was even 5 in the morning. I had my class. My students, with their sleepy eyes, they came there, and we just lovingly we were being on with our class. I was teaching them English, but surely some techniques of being a tour guide. And they were very interested, and they loved to be tour guides. And they were teaching, "You are a teacher, you are our role model, and we want to continue what you are doing." It was very, I loved my class, my students, and at the same time, I was doing some social works, helping the internal displaced people who needed help, just listening them, introducing them to some charity foundations, and or just talking with some women who really had a bad situation for themselves, trying to find them and trying to talk some psychologists or people who I know around me, and they were educated. So, doing this job, I really found very sad stories too. I found a woman, a girl who she was only 12 years old, but 3 times she was sexually abused by his addicted father's friend. And I found a woman who every weekend, her husband was back of work, he was punished, he was tortured, and there was no white part on her face because she was beaten, and all her face and her body was turned to black. Asking her, why are you just bearing this? Your husband is doing this. Why you are doing this? She was telling, just for the sake of my children, and just for this. I was trying to help her, trying to teach her techniques that her husband just shouldn't do that anymore. So, and also helping my niece and nephews. I had just each one of my brothers and sisters have just 3 suicide children, helping them with the money. As I started to be a tour guide, I just earned good money. So by the money, I was also helping them to participate some kindergarten, participate in their school, have enough books and notebooks for themselves, and also at home helping them to learn. So my smallest student at home was, I think she was a 1-year-old girl, and I was teaching them English I wanted to grow her up together with 2 languages, Persian and English, but unfortunately, everything ended up as Taliban captured Afghanistan, and just like a nightmare. So I was living my dream life, and once I understood that I cannot do that anymore, I have to wake up, and all those things were a dream. So the dream is finished, and you have to live a reality, and that reality was Taliban. So as Taliban got there, I experienced things that I just could imagine them in movies, but unfortunately those things were not movies, it was reality, and I had to deal with that. So hard, but I could make it, and I had to survive to do things. I have goals, dreams, still I want to do things, and still I want to follow my dreams, but maybe I need to restart everything. So I needed to survive. And to survive, the only way was to get out of the country, and I couldn't fight with the Taliban alone together with myself. So yeah, just that.
Wow, it's amazing.
Okay. Yes.
Amazing.
Thank
everything you did, you do, and I'm sure you didn't leave your dream. You just took a new road.
Right now, as I'm thinking, I'm a person who mostly think a lot. As I'm thinking, one day I just sacrificed my life to live my dream life, to follow my dreams. But I came in a point that I sacrificed my dream to live my life. And but the good thing is I can start again to live my dream life.
Yeah, true, because you already experienced everything, and you already created your life.
Yes.
And now you're just on a new point in a new country, in kind of a new life, but still everything you learned, you did, is in your backpack, and you're carrying it.
Yes.
So you can always start something.
Yes. All the things are very different. And for the first times, it was a little hard to adapt. And maybe I did so many crazy things that was against the rules. For example, life here was completely different than life there in Afghanistan. Just giving you a very simple example to the way of transportation. There easily I just stood up next to a street, and a taxi or maybe a bus or maybe a car was coming, and I just got up and I just went. But here, just learning how to take a bus, learning how to take a train, and and to use the card in a right way, was very just interesting for me. The time is very important. For example, here, just to give you a memory, one day one of my friend and I, so we went to just actually a mall, and we wanted to buy something. Then when we finished our shopping, so in order to turn back to home, we had to get a bus exactly at 3:36. And also it had a number. But we took the bus at 3:30, just 5 minutes difference. And then, the bus took us to another city. So, yes. So as we were going with the bus and we were watching out of the window, seeing that we were living in the city. Now we are going how can I say, there was a kind of agriculture, there were no home there, a river, where are we going? Asking the just driver, he said, you are going to this city, and say, no, we are there. They said, yes, but you decided to go to that city. He said, no, we wanted to go there. He was just laughing. So we told them to just please stop. We want to get out. He said, I don't have the permission to stop here. I have to go to a station, and the only station is in the city. So when you arrive there, you need to get another bus to go back. So yes, so finally we had to get there, and in that city we took a bus and we came back. Then we came back, we just we just get out of the bus in a very unknown place. So on that day we walked a lot in order to find our home. It was, I think, it was 10 p.m. at night that we could find our home.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Oh, it's so good, because there is a question: what's the difference between living in Afghanistan and living in Italy? So you already talked about it, and that's a very good situation, because these are in the everyday life are normal, but only normal in the country where you live. It's like crossing the street. Here in Europe, you have crosswalks and traffic lights. And in most of the countries I travel to, you just cross the street, where between the cars, between the scooters, between everything. So that's also an interesting story with the buses.
Yeah, and so many other things. When we go to, for example, a mall, we have to take a kind of special basket here. So to take basket, we have to, for example, give €1, and in order to open the lock of that basket. Yeah. But we didn't have €1 to take that. So when we entered into the mall, we were buying things and putting them somewhere, and all the people were looking at us strangely and suggesting us to go and take a basket. But we didn't say them anything, just okay, we go on. Or for example, the food is very different than the food in Afghanistan. For the first time we were in quarantine, and they brought us a kind of food. It was closed. When we opened, we were two of my friends and I were together. When we opened the food, and there was something very strange, and that was octopus. So we have never seen and we have never eaten octopus, and all of us shouted and threw the food away. And we were shocked, because of that. 3 days we couldn't eat food because it was very strange for us. Yeah. So I think so many strange things, but finally I'm a little better to live my normal life here. I'm trying my best to adapt myself.
Yeah, I remember when we went to this kebab store, when you said Italians always eat pasta, they never eat rice. And I was like, yeah, of course, we're in Italy. But for you, of course, because you grew up with a lot of rice.
Yes, in Afghanistan restaurants, each meal had to have rice, and we had a lot of rice. But here, when we go to restaurant and ask them, do you have rice? It's very strange for them when we ask, do you have rice? Where's rice? Pasta, pizza, and many other things, but never rice.
Yeah, you have to go to an Asian restaurant, maybe a Thai restaurant or an Indian restaurant. Oh,
yes, yeah, mostly I go to Indian or Pakistan or I try my best to find an Afghan restaurant. But yeah, surely I like to try but Italian foods, but surely not easy for me to eat them.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yes.
And are there any like habits you realize that they are very different from the culture, like how the people act or react in specific ways? You are always like, huh?
You know, in Afghanistan, people are very friendly together. You know, on the streets, we could talk to anyone we wanted. Or, for example, when we wanted to take a taxi and there were two more ladies in the taxi, so we easily could talk to each other about things going on. Or, for example, to ask something from a person, it was very easy. For example, in the neighborhood, when we didn't have oil or we finished our oil, we easily could go and ask our neighbor to give us some oil because we finished that tonight. So we borrowed oil or anything we wanted or even food. But here, just people are colder, and you know, when we are in the bus, we cannot talk, or on the streets, we cannot ask easily things from people. And I think it's completely different than Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Or even, you know, here for me it's very hard to understand when is my breakfast, when is my lunch, and when is my dinner. In Afghanistan, I had exactly, for example, breakfast in 7 a.m. or my dinner at 12, my lunch at 12, and my dinner at, for example, 9 or 8 p.m. But here, maybe you don't believe, but my dinner, my breakfast is mostly at 10 a.m. or even sometimes I ate my breakfast at 12. Or the time is very different, and still I couldn't adapt myself very well to this. So many things are different, but yeah, surely I could find so many things very beautiful than Afghanistan. For example, in Afghanistan, for me, I always wish to go at night on the streets, walk, and with no fear. But you know, here I can do that. It's a kind of my living my dream life. You know, there I could never walk with my guests out late on the streets because it was insecure or it was unsafe. But here I can do that easily. I can stay out at night as late as I want. Then so I think it's, or for example, there were no restaurants who offer their food. There were no, for example, restaurants who had their chairs on the streets as we have had our coffee out there. I think this culture is also very beautiful. So people till late at night, they are out and they talk together, have fun together. I think this is nice and very peaceful, just the real peace we can feel. Or when you get out, you don't need to worry. Or when I get out, I don't need to worry about my safety. But in Afghanistan, it was much different. When I got out in the morning, I was thinking I may not be back alive because things were completely different than here. There may happen an explosion, or there may be someone who kidnapped me. But here, I don't think about these things.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's always both sides, right?
Yes.
Very better and worse things.
Yeah, I think so.